if you get sent an idea as a commissioning editor that is completely removed from your experience.
Of course, the bias is going to be there.
Not just bias, you won't find that interesting.
Yeah. Well, that is,
So unless you have people from different diverse backgrounds in the position of being able to decide what gets funded, what gets financed. Well, the same thing for women.
Yeah.
The women things have moved faster and better, but in terms of Asian and black content, it has been much slower.
So you haven't been particularly impressed by some of that content that represents Asians and blacks right now? Have you been impressed by anything out?
What do you mean in terms of?
In terms of representation.
But there hasn't been much.
Progression.
There's hardly been anything. Every 5 or 10 years, even Gurinder, now she's getting more work, but when she did her first film, Baji on the Beach, it took her a long time to get funding for Bend It Like Beckham.
Right.
And in fact, she got money in Germany, and even after that, it's not easy for her to get, wasn't for, because the kind of subject she was doing, they were not seen as...
still that resistance.
Do you foresee that changing anytime soon?
Well, as I was saying earlier on, when we were making programs in the 90s and all that, it's to do with power of money. And, if you have the resources of the company, you produce things that reflect your experience. So, obviously, if I do a film, like we did a feature film called Mad Dogs, which didn't do well, it was too dark and it was sci-fi. So the main character was an Asian woman. Indra Verma acted in it, So she's done a lot of stuff after that as well, and she's a very good stage actress. But the opportunities for Asian actors or technicians, we were actively encouraging other people like us to be in the film industry. It's not that we just wanted to make films about social issues, about Asians or race and all that. We did all sorts of things. But I'm not saying just us, but the other companies like us that existed, which didn't have the money to do it, or commissions to do it, obviously those ideas weren't shown on TV. Hence, it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy where you don't have ideas coming in from black and Asian companies because you don't get commissioned. So now, for example, Channel 4 started a scheme called the Accelerator Scheme. They realized that in terms of diversity, they had a lead on everybody else, but they're not anymore. So now they're trying to ask black and Asian companies to come up and saying, we will encourage you to do.
And how much of your experience do you find influences what you then choose to pursue in terms of your various projects that you might have on the table at a given time? Do you feel that you angle them slightly to try to achieve maybe more success or to learn from something you've done in the past, or do you just follow what you have the most belief in?
No, but initially when you start in any kind of professional career, you're idealistic and you want to do what you believe. I mean, as a filmmaker, it's what you want to say, it's what you're eager for people to hear, so what's close to you. Those are the things that you start with. But as you were saying earlier, when we started, we felt we had a slight role for social awareness because we had the chance to be on national TV. And don't forget, in those days, I mean, you might find it surprising because you're both very young, there were only 4 channels.
No.
There were 3 channels. there were 3 channels.
Yeah.
Channel 4 was the 4th channel. So there were 4 channels on television, 4 places. So, and in one sense, the audience was more unified in a sense. Now there's breakup of that, so now you've got so many channels, so many different places you can see yourself in. There was a kind of a collective experience of watching things together, and you knew that, so those kind of, there have been fragmentation of audiences.
But that fragmentation, so now we live in an era where you can be your own muse. You can just go on Netflix, you can decide the kind of thing you want to watch, suggest you just, a whole massive number of shows that align with your interests. So you can go wherever you want. You're not being programmed by television programming in the same way. Do you think that that's a good thing in terms of expanding people's awareness of communities that aren't represented in terms of representing a plurality of perspectives that come from the Muslim world or whatever. Do you think it's a good thing, or do you think that the old school TV programming was better for that kind of campaigning?
No, anything. The idea is to have a profession that you believe in, make films and programs that you like making or working on. Sometimes you work on things that are not your ideas, you work for other people.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing is to be able to make a living, to have the business you're doing give you a return. It's not just about making a program, putting on YouTube.
No.
I'm talking about people who take this as a profession.
Yeah.
As you as an actor, you want to act so that it gives you a living and an income.
Yeah.
You don't want to just be an actor for the sake of acting. That's a privilege,
Of course.
that most people cannot afford. So sometimes I wonder how what you described, that young people want to do, put their stuff on YouTube and all that. I know you can monetize YouTube if you get lots of hits, but most of it is to do with, music or some good bloggers. But
what I was actually referring to more specifically was Netflix. Netflix is not, YouTube is for free content, and we're talking about Netflix, which is a home of really high production TV shows, which you can just binge watch. Seasons, you can just watch a whole season. That is, where the most high budget TV being made today.
And Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime and things like that. And I'm saying from...
But what I'm trying to say is, how do you get into the position where Amazon Prime or Netflix will give you work?
Yeah.
So you have to position yourself, and you must have had some opportunities to set up as a business, as a company. You have to raise your profile so that even if you look at Netflix now or Amazon, they're just star chasers. They're all the big celebrities, big directors or big people get the work. If you try and get work for them, you might be very lucky.
As an emerging filmmaker then, do you think the key is to try to tap a vein? Like a lot of your work has been sort of described as thought-provoking or groundbreaking. Do you think that that's key for an emerging filmmaker, particularly in the documentary world, to do that so that perhaps they can get a name for themselves by somehow tapping into something that provokes a huge surge of interest, and then they can perhaps pursue it more in a Netflix way or professionally?
I think we were talking earlier about documentaries, how the documentary genre in TV has changed a lot. There are very few slots now for single documentaries. Okay, so when you talk about making factual programs, of which documentary is one aspect, you have to look at television today and see, what we were saying earlier, who's your audience, and what. So there are many aspects now into factual programming. Daytime TV. So you have to get into all the channels, all these websites, and see what each commissioning editor is looking for. That'll give you a sense.
Specificity.
Yeah. And everyone wants a good story, or a good story that other people don't have. But it's not just like one-off. One has to think of making a series of programs, or the buzzword now is returnable. So if you have an idea for a series that is returnable, meaning they can keep making it. So make a good program at the lowest cost possible. That's what it's all about right now. Although when you think there's so many channels, you think that you'll have a lot more work. It hasn't transpired like that for lots of people. Where work has come is production companies. Like, we missed an opportunity. Our company was going to be taken over by another company bigger than us. At that time we had lots of work, so we didn't bother. But if you look at all the production companies in London, or many companies in the UK, they've been taken over by bigger media outfits. American companies have taken over, 2020 Vision, names so many other companies. They've all become corporates, and they produce programs for TV, like in bulk. Like the channel can go to them and say, I want 20 of these episodes, 30 of these episodes, and they know these guys are going to deliver. So when you come in new, because there's so many companies, you have opportunities in working for those companies. You don't have to do everything yourself like we had to. You know what I'm saying? And because there are not that many companies that have that are owned by people from a diverse background, or previously there hardly any companies that are owned by women. So now you've got sister productions who I work with on the BBC drama called The Split. The company is owned all by women. It's called Sister Productions, you know.